Welcome back, and thank you for joining us. If you are looking to join a supplier team, build a supplier team, or switch supplier teams, one company you definitely want to talk to is CSA Recruiters. And with me now is Denise Natishan, Senior Partner with Cameron Smith & Associates. Denise, thanks for taking time to talk to us today. I want to get things started. You guys have been in business now for about, what, 20 years?
Almost 20 years.
What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in terms of the quality of people that have come in and the supplier teams that are here?
Good question. I think that since I started, especially with Cameron, I've noticed the caliber of the candidate has changed significantly. So while companies back in the day would hire people without degrees, that's absolutely a critical piece right now. So in terms of technical skills, being able to go beyond the numbers, used to be just to be able to pull a retail link report was sufficient. Now, unless they can go beyond the numbers and tell a story, that's not good enough. So caliber of the candidate is critical.
Many are going to have credited Cameron Smith with kind of catching the vision really before anybody else here in Northwest Arkansas, and really there weren't recruiters here. Are you still seeing a lot of supplier teams come in and open up offices that may not have been here 5 years ago?
Absolutely. We're seeing still a significant growth. In fact, just this past week we had somebody come calling us from Mexico trying to bring their product in. So, you know, while people talk about technology changing the landscape and not still having to be on the ground, the smart companies realize that it's still about relationships. There's nothing that can replace that, so we're still seeing a significant input, and we believe that the major growth will be with international.
So as you talk to the supplier teams and as they're getting put together, what would you tell a company, if I came to you as a company and said, I want to put a team together in Northwest Arkansas to call on Walmart and Sam's? What would be the first thing that you would tell them or tell me that I have to have in terms of skill set, in terms of experience?
I think the biggest thing that you would probably want to have is somebody that has the relationship skills to be able to work with inside Walmart. So we're going to be looking at somebody that's a national account manager, team lead, whatever you want to call the term. It's going to be somebody that has that face ability in front of a buyer and somebody that has the analytical skills as well. So you could combine that kind of a person into one. So that's the first person that you would need on the ground.
What are some of the other strengths that you have seen really successful teams have kind of in their arsenal of HR resources?
I think what we're seeing too now, Derek, is actually a lot of teams are growing in terms of shopper insights, shopper marketing. We see teams in the past that didn't have finance, for instance, are bringing finance to here. They're bringing more supply chain. So the teams continue to grow and expand. I think that one of the things that I've seen happen too is that digital, e-commerce, all those areas are just growing like crazy, and the smart companies are the ones that are taking advantage of that and forwarding ahead.
Beyond that technical competence, and you may have kind of answered this, but how is that different from 5 years ago? I mean, you talked a little bit, but what were we seeing 5 or 10 years ago?
I think the thing that we're seeing the biggest change is that there's real-time information now as far as social media. So you're getting constant feedback as far as what the shopper's doing. So companies have to be able to respond quickly to that information. And so while we would have just pulled a retail link report with Store of the Community, all the new technology that's happening, it's critical that companies take advantage of all that information and access that. So that's probably one of the biggest trends that we're seeing taking place.
What's one of the biggest things that you see kind of lacking on supplier teams that maybe some of the big companies like the P&Gs or the Unilevers may be scrambling now to try to bring on board? What is that, like, one skill set that most teams may seem to be missing?
I think it's the social, when it look at the skill set, I think it's more the types of positions that they're going to be looking at. So e-commerce, social media, digital, all those areas have to be brought to the fore in order to stay current and to stay relevant. We've talked about what were the people that were competitors for Walmart, and some in the past it might have been looking at Dollar General. We're looking at Amazon as one of those competitors. So smart companies are staying ahead and really dealing with that as far as a way to build up their teams here locally. And that includes social insights or looking at consumer insights, the trends that are taking place, and going beyond just what the numbers say.
So as you've talked to dozens of people a day, if not hundreds
Quite
a day, who seems to be having the most success with their careers? Are they the people who get with the company and stay there like they did back in the 60s, where they stay there 20 years, 30 years and retire? Or are they ones who seem to be making that move every 5 to 7 years? And I recently read that most people today stay at a job about 5 to 7 years and they're looking to do something else. Are you seeing people who've been long time or been with the company for a long time? Or are you seeing those people, I'm not going to say job hopper, but are you seeing that type of activity?
Absolutely. Well, I think the thing is that there's a difference between being a job hopper and then being smart with your career. And so even back from the 90s to now, it's different as far as what people are doing and how they have to change. So many of the companies stay siloed, and so you can't advance your career as quickly as you can unless you make a move. And then I think that that's one of the challenges that major companies are facing in how to retain top talent. They need to be able to be creative as far as opportunities that they give to people. But honestly, I think that 5 to 7 years, and then you almost need your next challenge in order to be able to advance. Some companies have kept their salaries low. They don't recognize the significance of what this local market is. So in order to bungee jump a career sometimes or jump your salary, people have had to make moves. Have to be careful as far as how much you do that and how often, because then you don't want to be a job hopper. You want to make smart moves. But companies are changing. They're leaving people these days, so people have to be in charge of their own career.
Now, if somebody, and that's one thing that I know you and I talked about earlier this week, if somebody's wanting to get into the supplier community,
Yes.
And I've talked to some people that are wanting to do that, and they want to call you, what's your advice to them?
My advice is simple. I think that people really need to understand what's going on in the supplier community or what they have glamorized as far as what the jobs actually look like. So I would say there's a couple avenues that they could take. Courses at 8th and Walton, for instance. I mean, I think that you have to love numbers, you have to love to be analytical, you have to have that kind of passion. Walmart is the largest customer for most of the teams that are here. So if they're going to put their best and their brightest people on the teams, you need to be able to step up to the plate. Understand what the job is about so you can do things like take courses, job shadow somebody, sit down, do an interview, ask somebody what their day-to-day life is like as far as a vendor is concerned, because I think we have a little bit of a misconception of what actually takes place.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I was at Walmart for a long time, and trying to get out, one of the things that I know I heard often is that we'd love to talk to you, but you still work at Walmart.
Right.
Are you still seeing some people from Walmart who are wanting to leave? And I know, and I also want to say that, in that I have seen a lot of people who are on the supplier side who are now working for Walmart have kind of crossed the other way. So are you still seeing some of that back and forth?
We're seeing a change, actually, because it used to be that more, when I first started again with Cameron, I saw a lot of people wanting to maybe leave, thinking that the salaries were much better on the supplier side, where in fact, right now we're seeing a movement back and forth on both sides, so that what used to be taboo in some areas is not as taboo as it used to be, and we're seeing a lot of suppliers actually go inside of Walmart. So there's a big change.
Now, I've also heard and kind of seen and read stories that sites like LinkedIn are kind of the new way to find your next job. Monster.com, I know you and I talked about this, but Monster.com, Career Builder, those were big late 90s, early 2000s. Those seem to have largely gone away. I know that they're still out there, but they don't seem to be as effective as what they once were. How are you seeing sites like LinkedIn and Facebook in the job search?
I've get that question quite a bit, and I know back in the day they said that it was when career builders and hot jobs were coming along that we were going to be replaced. There is nothing that can replace a good recruiter, both for the company and for the candidate. Because when you think about it, it's about being invited to the interview. And as a company, you're going to want a passive candidate. You're not going to want somebody that's throwing their resume out all over the place. And as a candidate, you need to be careful about that, because there's companies that are advertising their jobs. In fact, I've heard stories of people who have actually applied for their job from their own company, and their company sees their resume and they've been let go. So now that's the severe end of it, but at the same time, your name out there all over the place, it doesn't matter. It's the personal touch. It's us being like real estate agent for you, or a talent scout. So when you're looking as a talent scout, we're constantly looking for the best and the brightest to be able to introduce to our clients, to our companies. And so that's what you want, is good representation. Somebody's going to manage your career, help you through it, ask good questions, and be able to place you in the right place. So whether it's the right house, whether it's the right company that you go to, the team, those are the kinds of things that we're able to do that you can't get from a website.
Now, you and I had a chance to talk to one kind of misconception about recruiters. If I'm looking for a job, I can call you up and you're going to try to get me one. That's a kind of a misnomer and a falsehood to an extent. Let's talk about that a little bit, because as a recruiter, you're not working for me as a job hunter.
No. That's correct, absolutely correct. And that is one of the misconceptions that we fight all the time, is that candidates call us, we call them the candidates, the person that's looking for the position, call us, and they think that they have to either A, pay us, or we're working for them, when in fact our client companies are the ones that pay us and are the person that we're working for. So what I do a lot of times is I'm looking for the best talent, and if I work with a company really closely, I'll call them and let them know I've met somebody. They may not have an opening right away, but they'll sit down, they'll have a coffee with the person so that they keep a warm relationship going, so that when there is a need, they have a good quality candidate ready to step in.
And obviously that interview is the first step, but what are you seeing in some of the top companies? What are they doing to really kind of retain the people that they've gotten? Is it through incentives? Is it through compensation? What are they doing to really keep that top talent, to ensure that they're not putting their name out there and trying to find something?
And that's a good question, because I think the biggest thing is that companies lose great people for what I think are silly reasons. And I think that if companies are being more progressive as they look ahead, there's such a change in the workforce, and there's such a change as far as what the technology has done. So people need to look at ways to incentivize people that are small perks. So things like working from home 1 day a week, or giving flex hours. We are all trying to manage so much between children and work and family and taking care of elderly parents. So this whole sandwich has happened, and companies need to be able to respond. We don't live in the same 9 to 5 where one person stayed at home. We live close to our families that would be able to help out. So companies have to be realistic in the way that they look at it. And I think simple things too, as far as a manager of a people or managing people, just give them incentives as far as knowing and acknowledging that they've done a great job. And far too often we hear about bad managers and people that haven't taken the time to just say thank you. And I think it's simple little things that get lost in the day-to-day of what we're doing. As
the recession kind of hit, did you see companies begin to cut back? And I know that the job market seems to be somewhat flooded now, especially with college graduates coming out.
Right.
So are you seeing companies pull back, or are they being more selective now because they can be?
No, actually, I think it's just the opposite. I think candidates are being very much more selective as far as where they go. So I think the thing that has to happen too is companies need to recognize that they need to sell their company. Often when I've had a candidate go in, the person is interviewing them as much as the company is. And the company doesn't recognize that they have to sell themselves, that this is a great place to work. There's a lot of candidates out there, and there's a lot of good people, but they're not going to make a move as quickly because of all the challenges that happened when the recession happened. So they're not so quick to jump because they don't want to be the first one in, last one out. The point is, people are being very selective. They're not going to jump for $2,000 or $5,000 because they've got a stake in where they are. So there has to be an understanding by the company to be able to put their best foot forward as well.
Is it tough to get people to move to Northwest Arkansas?
In the beginning, yes. It still remains a challenge, but I think, as everybody knows, once they get here, they realize that this is an outstanding place to live. I know for myself, I moved here and I thought I wasn't going to stay that long, and here I am 8 years later with Cameron, and knowing that this is a good community because of all the development that's taking place, the resources that are here. So yes, it still remains a challenge, but I think more and more people are getting the fact that this is a great place to live.
You and I had a chance to talk this past week, and one of the things that I've heard as I've talked to different people, different companies, and they're very reluctant to use a recruiter because they say, if I have a recruiter hire or place somebody, they're going to come back around in a couple of years, they're going to tap that person, and they're going to try to move them out for something else. How would you respond to that?
That couldn't be farther from the truth, Derek. I know that that's a misconception that's out there. And does that happen in our industry? Absolutely. And that's what gives our industry a bad name. But we've been in business now for almost 20 years. We would not be able to be as successful as we are if we were doing that kind of practice. Now, there are some unique situations that do take place where we have a relationship with a very good client company, and we'll call the person and ask them, if we get a resume from somebody inside of your company, how do you feel if we get that resume? What do you want us to do with it? How do you want to handle? And almost half the time the person will say to us, if they want to leave, you can take them out. So, but that's a unique situation. That doesn't happen. It's
So I guess one of the last questions I'm going to have for you is, if somebody is looking and they may not have ever talked to a recruiter before, what do they need to have and what should they think through before they ever pick the phone up to call you?
I think the things that especially if they're going to come to us, I mean, when you asked me before about somebody that is trying to break into the vendor community, we're very specialized. Our clients are looking for people that have the experience. So we're a boutique firm in that sense. And so if you're looking to break into the vendor community, we're probably not the person that's going to be able to help you. We have all kinds of tools and tricks and tips and things that we can pass along to help you. But if you're actually with a vendor, the simple thing is to just pick up the phone and call us or email us, look on the website, see if there's opportunities that match your skill set. We'll be happy to sit down and talk to you. You don't even need to have a great resume. We actually can sit down and help you with that, so we can talk through what your career goals are. We're here to do not just place you in a position, to make sure that we do the right position for you.